dear to me is the nice little pockets in this nisayon. So as I'm seeing all your faces, I'm so excited to see everybody. Okay, let's begin. Since time was our place where we started here, I'd like to make reference to time as a beginning. This nisayon that we're in right now has basically frozen time for us. And when I think about it, I think about that in my life, I can not think of any experience that I've ever had, and maybe you'll agree with me, of the inability to plan for the future, the inability to know what next week is going to bring. And even when I think about post-Pesach, summer plans, it's just like we're frozen in time. And that alone is such an incredibly unusual nisayon. And when you think about it, it's very, very appropriate for Pesach. We're told that ki b'chipazon yatzatem mitzrayim. The whole concept that the theme of time in Pesach is so powerful. Hashem takes us out quickly with no prior warning to a place where we have no idea where we're going to. Ladies, this is where we are right now as well. We're quickly kind of put into a situation with no prior preparation. We don't exactly know where we're going to. And yet the theme for us at this time is the pasuk in Yirmiyahu Lamed Aleph. The pasuk says, Zacharti la chesed nurayich, avas klulotayich. Hashem always remembers us, Klal Yisrael, that we were like this loving young couple, lechtech achrai be'eretz lo zruah, that we followed Hashem to the unknown land. Whenever I speak about Shalom Bayis, I always say that when you marry somebody, you're following the person to the unknown land, and you don't really know where life is going to bring you. And there's a certain trust, and Hashem calls it chesed nu'urayich, avas klulotayich. There are two things that are required to follow somebody to the unknown land. That's ava and chesed. Ava is I love you, I know you love me, and therefore I can trust you and I can follow you. But even so, there's a chesed involved. The chesed of being able to drop your life and go with the other person's plan to the unknown land is chesed. So it's avas, we're saying it's ava and chesed. Chesed nurayich, avas klulotayich. Ladies, I know that this is an abstract way to think about our relationship with Hashem, but we are following Hashem to the unknown land. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's going to be tomorrow. And we lovingly follow Hashem to the unknown lands. This has so many different aspects to it. Everything from your daily planning, from not knowing what tomorrow's restrictions are going to be. I woke up this morning to find out that my married couples can't be with me for the Pesach Seder. And as Benjamin Netanyahu said last night, we're all going to have lonely Seders this year. Yesterday, that wasn't the reality. To the bigger things of people who are struggling and people who are sick. And, so many aspects of this are unknown. This is a time similar to Yetzias Mitzrayim, where Hashem is strengthening our Ava and our Chesed. We're following him to the unknown land. Okay, so what I really would like to do right now in our time together is to connect concepts of Bitachon, Pesach, and Corona. There's always new twists that come into the picture. And I would like to talk for a second about the concept of wearing a mask. I don't know what's going on in different places in the world, but Israel's considering following Czechoslovakia, making it required for people who go out in public to be wearing masks. And for me, the word mask always has a very specific connotation. Some of my students have heard me speak about this before, that my youngest son, who's 10 years old, when he was a little less than 2, there was one Purim where he cried the entire Purim long. And I had a lot of guests in my house, and I didn't know what was bothering him. And only after Purim was over did I find out that he was terrified of a mask that somebody was wearing, one of my other children. So I asked my children to put away the mask, and they put it on a very high shelf in a closet, and they decided that it's not coming out until he's older. So a few months later, when he was not yet 2 years old, I walked into my house and I see for some reason the mask is sitting on the table. My little almost 2-year-old starts crying. And I said, oh, there went a nice day. He's terrified of this mask and it's sitting there on the table. And then he did something unbelievable, which taught me a very important life lesson. Some of my students have heard me say this, and I'm going to relate it to our present struggle soon. He put on the mask. He took the mask in his hand and he had his head, he was covering his eyes like this so he wouldn't have to see the mask that he was holding. And he walked over to me and he said to me, Mommy, put on the mask, talk to me from the mask. And since I always follow instructions from 2-year-olds, I listened to him. And I put on the mask and I started talking to him. And then I understood what he wanted. He wanted me to help him demystify the mask. By hearing my voice behind the mask, he was going to demystify the evil of this mask. And he was only 2 years old, less than 2 years old. So I spoke to him for a few minutes and I said to him, Sefi, this is Mommy. Mommy loves you. And then after a few minutes, he takes the mask off of me. He goes over to one of my teenage daughters and he says to her, put on the mask, talk to me from the mask. And after she did the same exercise with him for around 2 minutes, his fear of the mask had disappeared. The mask went to his toy box and he played with it happily afterwards until it was so ripped that a few months later it went into the garbage. So this was a less than 2-year-old who managed to do a certain self-help therapy. And my first thought was, this kid's a genius. So I'm calling my husband and telling him what this child did to help himself, get over a fear. And one of my kids in the background says, Mommy, you shouldn't be that proud of him. I told him to do this. So he had not made his own therapy, but he followed instructions and he managed to demystify the evil. What went on in my mind throughout that day, and many of my students have heard me, is that this became an icon of bitachon in my mind called demystifying the evil or removing the mask. And it has a special connotation for us right now because many of us are actually walking around wearing masks. That what does it mean to demystify the evil and look behind the mask? So the Gemara in Tainus Yud Chet, the Gemara says that there's an example of demystifying evil. 2 Jews by the name of Lulinus and Pappus were about to be executed by a Roman executor. And they look at the executor and they say to him, if we're not chayav misa, if we're not supposed to die, then you will not be able to kill us. V'im nitchayavnu kliya lamakom. If we are chayav misa, harbe dubim v'harbe arayot yesh lamakom ba'olamo. Hashem has many lions and bears in his world. Now, what's the purpose? Imagine looking at somebody who's about to kill you and saying to him, you can't kill me. If I'm not supposed to die, I'm not going to die. And if I'm supposed to die, it could be a bear or a tiger, anything else. What's the purpose? The purpose is reminding ourselves that there's nothing in this world that has koach over me except for Hashem. And in the examples of the Gemara, we're talking about a person, an executor. But for us today, it's the sickness. It's a virus that's invisible and very scary. It's numbers and statistics that you hear about. What the mask is for different people. For some people, the word corona is the mask. It's the scary thing. For some people, it's waking up in the morning and hearing the statistics that keep changing and going up, and they're so scary and they multiply exponentially. We have many different things that are masks in our lives. And now a lot of us share certain masks that are the same one for all of us. But others have other things that we're scared of in life. Sometimes there's a person in our life we find very scary, and that's the mask. Sometimes there is a fear of terror, of sickness, of robbery, of a minus in a bank account. There are many different things that make us scared because we feel that it has control over us. But what we're learning is that nothing has control except for Hashem. And that's called demystifying the evil. I've mentioned this in one of my earlier shiurim on this topic, that, it bothers me when I look at Corona, the way it is shown in all the advertisements, at least in Israel. It's presented in the form of a virus, like a ball with these like little protruding lines. I'm sure you have that in different places in the world also. And it looks scary. It's like this little evil looking thing that could attach itself anywhere. And for the Michala girls among us, Mrs. Hirschman was discussing with me the fact that the word corona actually means a crown. And if we look at it in the right way, corona, every little bit of this virus is a little gold crown of Hashem saying, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Millions and millions and millions of crowns, gold crowns all over the world. And really, it could help us kind of shift the way we look at this. There's a lot of tzara going on here, but Hashem is showing that He is the Melech al kol haaretz. He's the Melech over your counter. He's the Melech over the supermarket cart that you're afraid to touch. He's the Melech over the siblings who are fighting and getting in each other's way. He's the Melech over the people who are anxiously put together when they weren't supposed to be together for Yontif, and the people who can't be together when they want to be together. He's the Melech over the davening that used to be in shuls and are now in homes. He's the Melech over the chesed that has to be done long distance because we can't reach out to each other the same way. He's the Melech over everything. And therefore, what Corona is teaching us is Hashem Hu HaMelech. He's everywhere in the whole world. And if we can reframe this and move a little bit away from the alarming aspects, and just look at the unbelievable control that Hashem is showing the world right now. He's putting every one of us, regardless of religion and race and denomination and gender, we're all going through something universally. I don't know if there's ever been a time where we could say, V'haya Hashem lamelech al kol haaretz, like we could say now. A nisayon that affects the entire world. It's so powerful in the way Hashem is showing that He's here. And of course, it's our job to see it and to be mamlechim, not just over the world, but to be mamlechim over the inconveniences, be mamlechim over the products that we can't get and the shoes that we can't buy and the places we can't go. We have to be mamlechim over everything, over the big and the small, everything in the world. And this is Vayal Hashem Lamelech al Kol Haaretz. I think that there's no better time than pre-Pesach for us as a nation to once again realize that Hashem is totally taking us into this midbar, and we're going to be mamlechim wherever He takes us. Okay, I'd like to go into a different aspect that I'd like to mention. And it's a little bit of a practical way of moving away from the details of Corona, because we're talking very philosophically about beautiful ideas, Hashem Hu HaMelech, and yet we're very caught with the very specific details. And sometimes the details manage to distract us and make it hard for us to see the bigger picture of what's going on here. So I'll share with you that I think, again, some of my students over the different years have heard me say this idea. But every so often, and unfortunately, a few of these events have been close to Pesach, we've gone through things in the Jewish world where a tragedy occurs or a crisis takes place. And there are certain details around the crisis that make us focus and make us shake and make us shiver. But they take us away from the actual situation itself. Unfortunately, a few years ago, this already goes back quite a few years, there was a tragedy in New York where the Sassoon family, many children in the same family, and the wife passed. The wife, Baruch Hashem, survived, but many of the children, except for one, was nefter. And everybody was talking about hot plates and the fact that their hot plate had gone on fire, and about fire safety. People told me they didn't have cholent for many months afterwards. There was an incredible amount of focus on the fire and the cause of the fire and the hot plates. This is what happens when there's something very, very big and that happens, we get very, very focused on the details. And the details take us away from looking at Hashem in the picture. So I'll share with you that I saw this again. It's chaval. I don't want to give over negative things, but this particular place where I learned this message was related to Rav Vosner's Levaya. Rav Vosner was a very, very big gadol in Bnei Brak, who also passed away. He passed away Motzei Chag Rishon of Pesach a few years ago. And when I came into my house, I think I told this to my students this year, even some of my students heard me say this. When I walked into my kitchen the morning after the Levaya, my two sons were standing there and they were talking about the tragedy. And I realized quickly that there was something that had happened there beyond the passing of Rav Vosner. He was a very, very old man and a big tzaddik. But I realized that there was some reason they were talking about something else. So I said to my sons, I said, what happened here? And one of my sons says to the other, meaning, don't tell her. Now, this particular son is one who never wants to be a bearer of bad news. He never has anything bad to say about anybody. Everybody says, when you want to ask shidduch information, ask him. He'll give you a half hour of details, and then you'll realize after you hung up that there was not one negative thing that he said, a half hour positive. And then my machatenist always says about him, if you really want to know the real scoop, go ask someone else. Don't ask him, because he won't really tell you the story. So he didn't want me to know what had happened. So he goes like this to my other son, don't tell her. So for a few days there, I did not hear what happened. And you know what? He was right, because when I finally heard that 2 people were trampled to death at this Levaya, I was devastated, just devastated. And he was right. It wasn't the right thing to tell me on Yontif. So I was looking for chizuk and for direction as I kept on imagining the scene of people going to their Rebbe's Levaya and being trampled. And I opened up Rav Wolba's Sefer Alei Shor, and I was looking up Bitachon. And he said something very important, which I think relates now and relates to all crises that we go through. He says that the details around the tragedy and around the crisis, and this is his lashon, bo hitlapsha hatochnit ha'elokit. I'll explain. The details are the finishing touches that Hashem's plan gets dressed with these details. It's an interesting lashon. We look at a situation and we say, this person passed away because of corona, or this person passed away because of a fire, or this person, whatever it is. And we get very, very caught up with the details. He says the details are like, they're last minute touches that go on to a situation, but they don't get to the essence of what's going on. They distract you from the real message. So I'd like to give a positive mashal. When an older single girl who's been in shidduchim for many years gets engaged, everybody says, who was the shadchan? Who made the shidduch? And then that shadchan's inbox is flooded with hundreds of people's resumes, because everybody gets very caught up on the details. Who made the shidduch? But those details are like accessories. The fact that this shadchan made the shidduch is irrelevant to the fact. What's the real Tochnit Elokei, Hashem's plan? The real is Bas Ploni Leploni. Bas Ploni Leploni means that this person's supposed to marry this person at this time. The fact that it came through this shadchan or this is irrelevant. But everybody looks at the accessories. It's like if I said to you, who's Sarah Cohen? And you said to me, she wears green necklaces. That wouldn't be describing who she is. It would be describing an accessory on her, which might attract your attention, but it doesn't describe anything about her essence. And this was the message that Rav Wolba says. He says the first thing we have to do when we're in a situation which creates, I'm hearing some static. Are you still hearing me? Is everybody still able to hear me? Can I get a thumbs up if you're hearing me still? Or a thumbs down if you don't? Up. Okay, good. Great. Wonderful. Great. You know what? I'm going to put on the chat if anybody has any questions also. Yeah, there is static. I don't know how to deal with the static. Okay. If it gets bad, so please tell me and we'll reconnect again. Okay, great. So the first thing that Revolva recommends is that whenever there's a very, very big situation, we have to take off the accessories and look at Hashem's plan. Meaning, in the situation with Rav Wosner's Levaya, it was taking off the tragic circumstances of people being trampled, taking that away, and looking at Hashem's plan was that two Talmidim of Rav Wosner's Neshamas had chosen to leave the world together with their Rebbe. That's what happened. Neshamas who left the world together with their Rebbe. The fact that it came through such tragic circumstances is not what you're supposed to be looking at. So the first thing we have to do at a time of Nisayon is take off the accessories and look at Hashem's plan. I think when we look at Corona, please somebody tell me if you think it's getting too staticky. Not that I would know what to do, but I'd call one of my kids to help me or my husband to help me. Is it okay? Please give me a thumbs down if it's getting too staticky and we have to reconnect. Okay. Shira, I'm counting on you to tell me what to do, okay? Okay, so I think that we have to take off the accessories here. The news and the numbers and the statistics are so distracting from Hashem's plan. And there's a lot of details here. There's a lot of place to get caught up in the numbers and the who caught it and who's in quarantine and who's affected and who's not. We have to take that off and look at Hashem's plan. Ladies, I have to tell you that one of the most difficult things to do in such a crisis is to be able to see that anybody who passes away in this crisis is somebody whose neshama had chosen to leave the world that day, corona or not corona. Corona did not leave leave somebody's patira. The patira was Hashem's plan. The corona is the external details that are distracting us. And then we find ourselves saying, this person died of this, that person died of that. It's not, those are details. And again, the way Rav Wolbe describes it, Hamakeh bepatish ha'achrona, bohit lapshat tochnet elokit. Corona came later. A person before they was born, and we're going to talk about this, their neshama knows, together with Hashem, exactly how much time they're going to spend in this world. That was way back then. The final detail was how they were going to leave the world, whether they were going to not wake up in their bed one day or have corona or be in an accident. Those are the details that come later. And those details are like accessories. They come and they distract us and we look at them and we don't look at Hashem's plan. I was just talking to a mother, a single mother who has 2 young children, and she's so scared of getting sick. And her anxiety is so high. Who's going to take care of my children? And I was just telling her, unfortunately, I was on the phone with her instead of being on with you because I was off with the timing. And I was telling her, your neshama knows exactly how much time you're supposed to spend in this world. Corona is not affecting that at all. And this, girls, is the hardest bitachon that we have to have. We have to say that things are coming around through corona, but corona is not causing them. The Chazon Ish in the Sefer Emuno Bitachon, the Chazon Ish says that one of the biggest signs of a Baal Bitachon is the ability to switch between cause and effect. We say Corona caused the death. We're supposed to say this person was supposed to leave the world, and Corona was the way that came about. Meaning you switch. We always say, I got stuck in traffic, that's why I missed my appointment. And what's supposed to be the switch is that I was supposed to miss this appointment, that's why I got stuck in traffic. The cutest application of this is a baby crying during the night. And we say, if only this baby would stop crying, I could sleep a little bit. But the switch of the cause and the effect of the Chazon Ish is, you look at the baby and you say, baby, I'm so sorry. Hashem needs to test me, my patience. And you are the poor victim who has to be crying because I need my patience to be tested. I'm sorry, baby. If I was a bigger person, you wouldn't be crying now. Instead of saying, if you just stop crying, I could sleep. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, baby, that you're the one who has to cry because I have to be tested. It's teasing. When you say this person got a great shidduch because she had all the right connections, it's switched into this person had to marry that boy, and therefore the connections were made in order to enable that shidduch. It's always going to be a switch of a cause and effect. It's one of the hardest parts of bitachon, but you can challenge yourself to take some sentences that you say, this caused that, and to switch it around. What's causing what here? So what Corona is really doing is Corona is taking millions of details of people's gorel, the people whose neshamas choose to leave the world, the people who are supposed to be struggling in a certain way, the people who are supposed to have more time with their family, the people who needed a break from something they were doing, the chesed, the din, the good things, the bad things. Corona is just coming and it's dealing with a million details within one shot. And that's Hashem's omnipotence. That one little molecule can change a million details, and every detail is navigated by Hashem. I was once stuck in traffic on the Jerusalem-Tel Aviv highway, and when I finally saw it, was a very, very long traffic jam. And when I finally got to closer, I saw that it was because a car had stalled in the middle of the highway. Baruch Hashem, nobody was hurt. And I said to myself, wow, because of this guy who stalled, hundreds of people are going to be late to work this morning. And then I did the Chazon Ish switch. I said hundreds of people each had to not get to their destiny on time, and they all had to be on this highway, and then the car stalled in order for all that to come to fruition. This one's missing a bris, this one's coming late to work, this one has a doctor's appointment, this one's not going to make it to the mall on time. All the details all came together with that one car stalling. And I think that's the way we're supposed to view Corona. That there's many, many, many details of things that had to happen in the world. And Hashem, with all of his omnipotence and his brilliance, put it all together into this Nisayim. Okay, let's go to stage 2. Because stage 2 is, why should there be any details? Is there no relevance? Is there no importance to the details? Rav Wolbe says that your first step in bitachon is remove the details and look at the situation without all the sensationalism, without the fire, without the sickness, just look at Hashem's plan in the world. He says, after you've weaned yourself off of the cause-effect way of thinking, Corona caused this, Corona caused that, now you're ready to put the accessories back on and look at it again. Why did Hashem send it through these details? And why did this come around this way, not something else? And what's the message of Corona for us? I have to tell you honestly, ladies, I don't feel that I'm qualified to say why Corona and what the messages are. It's something that every one of us can look into our hearts and see. You know, there's all kinds of beautiful, beautiful ideas coming from people much bigger than me that are circulating as to what Hashem is trying to tell us through this Nisayim. But I think that there's no one right answer, and there's many different answers. The first thing we have to realize is that Corona is not causing anything. The only thing it's causing is us to wake up and see whatever it is we're supposed to be learning. But it's not causing death. It's not causing problems. It's not causing financial crash. The financial crash was supposed to happen. The things that are supposed to happen, and it comes through Corona. We can ask ourselves why Hashem chose dafka this. I remember that when I was thinking about the situation with Rav Wosner, so first I had to remind myself that these two Talmidim did not leave the world because they were trampled. They left the world because their neshamas choose to leave with their Rebbe. So I took off the terrible details of the trampling and realized these are two neshamas that left the world with their Rebbe. Now I'm ready to put it back on. Why dafka through trampling? You can take the physical route, which is about crowd control, that we have to be careful about crowd control. Or you could take a more spiritual route, which Rav Wolbe does, where he says that people have to be careful not to step on each other all the time. Even in our religious fervor, when we all want to do a mitzvah, sometimes we step on each other. And that maybe, chas v'shalom, when a person's trampled, I could think, am I ever trampling anybody? Am I stepping on somebody? Am I overpowering anybody in my life? Am I not letting people be? And that will be a spiritual application of this concept. Where Corona is, where we have to cleanse ourselves, what we have to do to clean our hands. Do we have to clean our hands of not being nice to people? Do we have to clean ourselves of certain germs in what we're doing? That's for every person to evaluate themselves. And again, we're going to say that every person who grows from a situation will get the message any way he wants to get it. Again, not that my pollution caused Corona, but rather that if I can, from this, come to a conclusion that I have to wash my hands off of a certain bad habit or cleanse myself of something, then I will have grown from this. And ladies, I want to say this point because I think this is also important. When we speak about cause and effect, sometimes that I am not talking about people who do this. There are people much bigger than me who do this. I'm just talking about the Kabbalah that I have from different mechanchim who I learned from. We could say strife causes Corona. Corona came because of Lashon Hara. It came because of whatever. But I was taught once that instead of saying that this caused that, we could say, as a schus in this matzav, I want to be mitchazik in Avas Yisrael. I was once very affected by a certain friend of mine who had a very, very beautiful daughter who was struggling with tznius in high school. And she said that, every time there would be a terrorist attack, a teacher would get up and say, Chayalim died today because of your skirt length. Or people are dying, buses are blowing up because of your, whatever the tznius things were. And this girl got called into the office one day because her skirt was a little too short or whatever it was. And the principal says to her, it's a big achrayus today not to be wearing those kind of clothing. People are dying. The girl says back to her principal, she says, how do you think it feels for me as a 15-year-old girl to be told that I'm killing people because of my skirt? The principal was a little bit shocked and didn't know how to respond. And I was thinking about the difference. You could say to people are dying because of this avera that you're doing. Or you could say to somebody, Klal Yisrael is in a difficult situation and we have ammunition, we have zchuyos. We can help save people through our mitzvos. You will achieve the same purpose, the same goal of getting people to be mitchazek, but instead of the guilt being the thing that motivates them, it's the sense of desire to help. I can do something to help the Jewish people. That's very different than saying I cause people to die. And I think about it sometimes that what we have to do with Corona is not say this is causing the sickness, but rather what Corona is doing is it's giving us a tremendous opportunity to look inside ourselves and see what can I do to improve the situation of Klal Yisrael. The world is suffering. The Jewish people are suffering. I'm a soldier. I have ammunition to help. What can I do to help? It's just the most positive way of getting us to grow without attributing the suffering to any specific cause, because we don't really know what the reasons are. But as we say, Lev Yodea Maris Nafsho, all of us know what we want to improve. And by the way, it's not just about improving, it's also about using our strengths to help the Jewish people. What strengths do I have? And the idea that we're sitting, that we're sitting so privately with ourselves and our own families, is really asking us to kind of like focus inward. What are my strengths? What can I use as ammunition to help the Jewish people? And I think that even the mitzvos that we love to do that are being taken away from us at this time, the fact that we can't go out and do chesed, that we can't go out and do things, for men, the minyanim. By the way, we need a little humor in this difficult time. My son says to me that there's a new concepts in checking out shidduchim. Usually you would say to somebody, oh, he goes to 3 minyanim a day, or he always davens with a minyan. Oh, that's nice. Now it's, he davens with the minyan? No, not for my son. If he davens with the minyan, no, we're not marrying him. So everything changes. My son was playing a joke on me, one of my younger sons. He says to me, Mommy, I'm just going to Mincha now. I'm just going to shul for Mincha. I said, you're going to Mincha? He says, no, only kidding, only kidding. So I said, isn't this crazy? I'm saying it like you're going to a bar? Like you're going to Mincha? Our whole world just turned topsy-turvy. Things that we would normally be so happy that our kids going off to Mincha, we're like, don't go to Mincha. So everything's upside down a little bit now. But what it's going to make happen is that when we finally do go back to shul, we're going to appreciate it that much more. When we finally are able to do chesed, we'll appreciate it that much more. The family members who we can't be with for this yantif, when we see them and when we're able to hug them, we'll hug them with more warmth. And when we're able to connect, we'll realize that it's not a given to have people in our lives to connect with. So I think that that's a universal message which we all can take, which is that whatever mitzvos or whatever people in your life you're somewhat separated from now, it will give you a chance to appreciate them more and to put more, give it a little more warmth and realize that we can't take them for granted. Okay. I have a few more ideas. I wanted to be brave enough to try to turn on this chat and see if anybody has any questions. Let's see if I can actually do it. I'd be very happy to take questions before we go on. Okay. Anybody who wants to write in any question, you're welcome to write in. Oh, okay. I have a question here that if anybody affected by corona, let's say chas v'shalom, people who are nifter, if they were going to die anyway, then why not go out to Minyan and do what you're doing? And this leads to the question of hishtadlut. And this is a very important question because really, if everything's happening that's supposed to happen anyway, why sanitize your hands? Why stay away from all the things you're staying away from? And the answer is that hishtadlus is, as the Mesilas Yesharim says in Perek Chaf Aleph, this is so important, ladies. Lo hishtadlut mo'il, ela hishtadlut muchrach. It's not that you're sanitizing your hands is really going to help you. It's that it's what Hashem wants you to do. And I'm taking corona and I'm learning so much from it in this way. Because as I'm sitting there sanitizing my hands, I'm thinking to myself with a little chuckle that it could be in a year, there'll be some study that will come out to say that alcohol gel didn't really kill coronavirus. And here we are spending millions of dollars all over the world going like this. And it could be that it's doing nothing for us. And it could be that 2 meters wasn't the right distance. And you know what? When you really think carefully, you can't really control where your germs are going and not going. But this is a message. Lo hishtadlut mo'il, ela hishtadlut muchrach. Ladies, before Chet Adam HaRishon, we were supposed to be handed everything on a silver platter. Health, shidduchim, finances, friendships, everything was supposed to be given to us. When Adam HaRishon sinned, the punishment was Bezeat apecha tochal lechem, which means that from this point on, you have to work hard for your bread. You're going to get the same bread anyway, but instead of getting it on a silver platter, you have to work for it. And therefore, the Mesilas Yesharim says so beautifully, every time you do hishtadlut, whether it's health or parnasa or shidduchim or anything, what you are doing is you're paying the tax of Adam HaRishon. Hu hamas sheporea kol hamin ha'enoshi. The human race has to pay the tax for the sin of Adam HaRishon, which means that I cannot expect to be healthy unless I do the things I have to do. While we do hishtadlut in any area of life, we have to remind ourselves, as the Mesilas Yesharim says, lo hishtadlut mo'il, it's not that my efforts are going to help. Ela hishtadlut muchrach. It's that this is what I have to do. Meaning, we all sanitize our hands, but the sanitizing of the hands is not what's going to stop me from getting sick. It's that Hashem has a plan, but He needs me to contribute to His plan. And the contribution is sanitize your hands or keep the distance. This is a message for life, ladies, because there are so many different areas in life where we go to school to train for different professions. And then we have to know that Hashem controls professions. I'm just doing the chelek. There are people who go to the most fancy colleges and are unemployed. There are people who failed out of school and make millions of dollars. So why am I doing all this schooling? Because that's the tax that you have to pay in Hashem's world. You have to try for your parnasa, try for education, try for your shidduchim, try for your health. And I'm trying to think about this as I sanitize my hands. I'm doing an action right now, which is actually not going to control the outcome, but it's something that I have to do. And this becomes the paradigm of Hishtadlut for our whole lives. The Alter of Kelm says it's so hard if you really believe Hashem controls the world, so don't sanitize your hands. He says, no, Hashem wants you to know that he controls the world, but he wants you to pretend like you're controlling the world. This is a very interesting paradigm. In fact, the Alter of Kelm says it's like telling somebody, Shvor et hachavit ushmor et yaina. Break the vessel and hold in the wine. Break the vessel, meaning walk around and control your environment, but hold in the wine. Hashem controls, not you. You're contributing, you're not controlling. And this becomes the very difficult paradigm. I say it's a little bit what we're doing in this world is a little bit like if I'm trying to train a young child to be helpful. And I say, come, Tzaddik, help mommy carry the cholent to the table. He takes his little hands, he puts it under this big cholent dish, and I'm carrying the dish from the top. But his little hands are kind of saying, oh, you're such a tzaddik, you're mommy's big helper. Really? The mother's holding, and she's training the child to hold a little bit on the bottom. But clearly, he's not the one controlling it. And if the child would say the next day, well, I can't go to school because my mommy said that she couldn't manage without me, I'm such a big helper, then obviously the child has lost focus. Everything we do in the world, whether it's phone calls for shidduchim, or education towards our parnasa, or sanitizing our hands, we are only contributing, we are not controlling. Hashem is training us to take responsibility. We're like the little kid who's being trained to be helpful. But the mother's holding the dish, but the kid gets to feel good about the fact that he's helping. And I think that this sickness is such a good place to strengthen this. Why? Because I don't know about you, but as I sanitize my hands, if I want to get a little obsessive about it, I could think, but I just touched that to touch this, and I'm not visiting my mother, but I'm sending her food, but I took the food with my own hands and put it in, but I put on the gloves, but after I put on the gloves, I might have touched something. You can go crazy from this. So you have to remind yourself, I am contributing and I am not controlling. Where I put my germs, I can't control this. But what I can do is I can contribute. And this is what Hashem wants me to do. Okay, we have to start winding down, and I'm so enjoying seeing all my favorite people on this screen over here. I would like to just look at the questions for a second to see if there's anything that, okay. Okay. Just the idea of the fact that people who are so moser nefesh for certain mitzvos, like davening with the minyan and all the things that are being taken away from us now, things that we can't do. And it's a very, very spiritual part of this nisayon, is that a lot of the spiritual things that you would normally do when you were in such a crisis, you can't do now. Reaching out to other people, visiting others, giving chizuk, going to daven together, yelling out together, going to the kotel, going to Kever Rachel. There's a million things we would normally do in a nisayon that we can't do now. And I think that that's inherently part of the nisayon. I was hearing from Rav Ephraim Waxman. It's worth listening to his shir on Corona. There's so many good things out there. I heard this recently. It was very beautiful. He says that, you know, when a mitzvah is taken away from you, and you can't, it's the Yetzer Hara trying to say, ha, I'm going to get them not to daven. And he managed. He closed down the shuls. But every Jew who tries and struggles to daven with kavana in the corner of his house is actually causing the Yetzer Hara to fail. Because the Yetzer Hara is saying, I'm going to close down davening. And then the advocates in Shemaim could say, but look how hard they're trying in their own houses. They can't do chesed the way they want to. got them to stop doing chesed. But no, we're trying to do chesed as much as we can anyway, even with our limited. So when a person under duress does a mitzvah, which seems compromised, but he tries so hard to do it anyway, even though the circumstances are working against him, this is a tremendous chos. And this is similar to the Holocaust type Mesiras Nefesh. Against all odds, people formed minyanim. We, against all odds, without our minyanim, we're going to have kavanah, we're going to turn to him. Against all odds, we're going to think of ways to do chesed anyway. Okay, let me see if there's anything else here. I'm okay with sharing the recording. It can go out. It's fine. No problem at all. Okay. This is a very, very sad reality, the idea of not going out to help people. I think that one thing that I'm learning from this nisayon is that if you could put somebody in danger by helping them and you help them, it's more for them, it's more for you than it is for them. And, I think about this all the time, that we've spoken about this with my students. Sometimes out of Rahmanas, I do something that I want to do, but it's not for the good of the other person. And I think we've all had situations where somebody said to you, I need to give you a hug, or I need to send you a cake, but actually I'm on a diet, or I don't like hugs. It's I need to give you a hug, right? It's my needs. And I think what we're being asked to do right now is not to put people in danger in order to help them. That would be more our need. But rather the very, very powerful, maybe we'll wind down with this, the very, very powerful idea in Noseh B'Olam Chavero. The idea that just caring about other people and davening for them and trying to help them in any way you can is incredibly powerful. There's a very interesting idea. Chazal say that when somebody visits the sick, he takes away 1/60 of the sickness that the other person has. And the lashon of the Gemara is ben gilo. If you visit somebody of your age group, you take away 1/60 of his sickness. And the question is, why ben gilo? So the answer that we have here is very interesting, and this could be applied to our situation right now. Person has 60 portions of sickness. When I really feel for you, for your sickness, I'm taking away a certain portion of your sickness because you have 60 measures of pain. But because I care about you so much, I am actually taking away some of that pain. You now only have 59 because I'm bearing 1/60 of it. Rav Yerucham, the famous Mashgiach of the Mir, used to say about this particular chazal, that this is true when you worry and think and care about people who are on the other side of the world and you could do nothing for them. Sometimes there are people who are suffering and there's nothing you could do other than being noseh ba'ol. He said, but when you're being noseh ba'ol, when you care, that person on the other side of the world is suddenly feeling a little lighter because a certain measure of his suffering was taken away because you're bearing it. That's what it means to be noseh ba'ol. I care about you, I'm bearing it, and Hashem has just given a certain amount of that suffering is already, I'm bearing it, he's feeling less. He doesn't know me, he's never met me, there's nothing that I could do for him, but he feels better today because I care. He says, this is the godless of Klal Yisrael. We don't realize the koach in our hearts. When you care for another Jew, even if you can't be there to do something for them, they will feel better. And I think that we have to connect to Noseh Ba'ol, because Noseh Ba'ol is one of the only things we could do. We can daven for people and we can care about them. And we could send packages to their door and we can call them and check on them. But some of the ways we would like to reach out, we can't. But we cannot underestimate the fact that somebody will wake up one day feeling better because I, in a different home, in a different place, am caring. I just was noseh with the ol. I just took the burden off of him. I will end by sharing with you a very beautiful idea that we learn about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, the first thing the Torah tells us about Moshe Rabbeinu was that he went out to his brothers, Vayar B'Sivlosam, that he went to see their suffering. And we don't hear that Moshe Rabbeinu was a Gaon, which he was. We don't hear about his general tzidkus, which he had. But we hear that he was Noseh Ba'ol. Medrash and Mechilta says that he would go over to every single Jew who was suffering, and he would say, I wish I could do the work instead of you. Give me one of your rocks. They were dealing with heavy stones all day. And he went over to each person and said, let me hold a stone. The question we have is, the person is spending day and night schlepping stones. For 1 minute, one other guy took a stone from him. What's the big deal? But what it does emotionally is tremendous. Because when Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash says, he took off his clothing of glory and he picked up a rock for a minute. He says that gave all the slaves in Mitzrayim chizuk for all the rest of their suffering. Because technically he couldn't do too much for them. But the Noseh Ba'ol made them feel someone's with me, someone understands me. Ladies, Noseh Ba'ol we can do no matter what. We can call people, we can think about them. And Noseh Ba'ol can be done for an anonymous person. You can close your eyes and think about somebody who's all alone, who has no one to take care of them, and you could feel for them. And they, who don't know you, you don't know their name, they don't know your name, they'll wake up tomorrow feeling better because you care. And this is the incredible koach of Noseh Ba'ol M'Chavera. Okay. I think I'm going to answer. I'm trying to see if there's anything. There's so much here. Okay. Oh, what does Ben Gilo have to do with it? There was a question on the Gemara. Because when you're the same age group as the person who you're visiting, you identify more with their difficulty. You know, when the idea is that naturally people identify better with people who are in the same situation as them. But I think what we're trying to say is that Noseh Ba'ol can go beyond this. Ben Gilo means, I know exactly how you feel. I'm your age. I have the same tsaros. I feel for you. We can extend this to people in different ages and stages as well. Okay, let me see if I see anything else here. I lost some of my messages here. I'm sorry for anybody who I'm not answering their question. It's because I don't know how to do this. Oh, 1 second. I think I figured this out. If I didn't answer a question that you would like to ask, you're welcome to ask now and I'll be able to read it because I can't get to the earlier ones. 1 second. Maybe I got there. Hold on. One new message. I'm sorry. My technical inabilities are causing the trouble here. Shira? Oh, okay, I got you back. Okay. I'm going to ask people maybe to send me their questions through email, and I will try to answer you because I'm having trouble with the technical aspects here.